Greetings and salutations. My name is OJ as always, and welcome back to another episode of the Deadlockathon, a series of videos where I go over every single character in Valve's not so secret hidden game Deadlock. I'll be going over them in alphabetical order from Abrams to Yamato. I'll be covering their lore and personality, their gameplay and abilities, as well as their design. Please do keep in mind that everything I talk about is subject to change at a later date, as that is just the nature with covering a game like Deadlock that is still actively in development. And if you wish to play Deadlock for yourself and don't have access for a previous video of mine, I'll throw my Steam name up on screen, and all you need to do is subscribe and send me a friend request, and then I'll send you a code. Please do keep in mind though that codes can take like 1 to 2 days, maybe longer to come through, so please do just be patient. But with all of that said, our object of obsession for today is an enigma that may never be revealed, that being none other than Warden. Now, as I do in every single one of these videos so far, I would like to cover Warden's lore and some other tidbits about him, as well as his personality. Though I feel like I should probably get this thing out of the way immediately, Warden doesn't have any interactions at all. I mentioned in the Sinclair video that Sinclair didn't have any interactions with any other characters. I didn't know Warden was also one of those people that just didn't have interactions until a comment pointed it out, and well, now here we are. And yeah, Warden doesn't have any character interactions that we can talk about, unfortunately, so this segment will probably be shorter. I said that in the Sinclair video and it still ended up being 13 minutes long, so I do apologise in advance if I'm lying out of my arse. But anyways, as I do in all of these videos, I would like to start by reading his in-game background. Most people think the supernatural came into the world 50 years ago. They're wrong. Its presence shaped folklore for generations. And as long as there have been people afraid of the shadows, there have been those who dedicated their lives to fighting in them. Coming from a lineage of militant alchemists, Warden's family always trained for the day they would have to stave off a mystical apocalypse. But as time passed, the importance of the lessons seemed less and less important. What once was viewed as a sincere warning slowly morphed into being perceived as amusing anecdotes told by their superstitious grandparents. When the portal opened in Central Park, Warden's parents realized not only was everything they were told was true, they were unprepared. Refusing to let the next generation fall asleep on the job, Warden was trained since birth to be a supernatural killing machine with one purpose: stopping the patrons from ever entering our world. I actually really like Warden's lore. This is probably the best thing about him, mostly due to the ideas it proposes forward. First things first, the idea that folklore, like all the folklore tales across all of these different cultures and the such, are actually, you know, supernatural beings that do exist, intrigues me immensely. Like, I mean, this game already has like vampires and stuff, which are, in a sense, a folklore tale. But can you imagine, like, any other folklore ever? Like, any folklore ever? Japanese folklore? Why is that the only one coming to my mind? I don't really know much folklore, I'm gonna be completely real with you. But like, just off the top of my head, that implies that things like Onis exist in the world of Deadlock, and they are real creatures that people did have to fight. Like, the idea that folklore across all of the world exists as, I mean, already, like, if you imagine Viscus's lore, or if you remember Viscus's lore, it mentions that, like, the Loch Ness Monster came from a rip in space and time down in the deep. Like, that's a folktale, that's a, you know, like, that implies stuff like Bigfoot exists, and is a supernatural being that people have had to, you know, interact with. So that's a really cool part of, like, Warden's lore. That's, like, a cool thing that it opens the door to. But I also kind of like Warden's kind of, what would you call it, his backstory? Like, the idea that he is a child soldier trained from the beginning of birth to fight the supernatural is an interesting difference compared to the rest of the characters who are either familiar with the supernatural or are supernatural in some way, shape or form. Like, Warden is familiar with them, but because he's been trained from birth to be fighting them, to be killing them, he is literally dedicated to his cause. And I think that's probably his best line. I can't find the audio file for it, but he has a line where every time you throw his like alchemical flask, he just shouts, "For the cause!" That one makes me giggle. He, per like some other stuff about him, like, that's the thing with Warden. It's kind of hard to talk about him because he doesn't really have much lore outside of, you know, like, he kind of just like, he doesn't have lore, he kind of just opens the door to lore, if that makes sense, with the supernatural thing and, you know, the idea that there may actually be other child soldiers trained to fight the patrons from day one. But anyway, some other lore tidbits about him is that he hides his true motives from the patrons despite their telepathic abilities. Now, I don't know if that's actually a feature of him, like he has, you know, I don't know, some mental blockage stuff that he taught himself or got taught to block out the patrons reading his mind. I don't know if that's actually true, or he's so early in development or so unfinished that they actually couldn't think of a reason why he would be fighting outside of "I want to kill the patrons," so they kind of have to say, oh, no one could read his mind. I'm leaning more towards the first one, the former, but hey, you never know, maybe he does actually have a different wish in mind. Maybe he actually wishes to, you know, eliminate the patrons, like actually go up to them and say, yo, die or something. I don't know. I'm leaning more towards the first one, but anyways, as such, the patrons likely don't know that Warden is working against their goals, which that's kind of why I think it's the former, where he's like blocking them out. Makes a lot more sense. And here's a fun fact. He also can block out the doorman, which is, it's very interesting, isn't it? Like an eldritch god who gets, like, who has all this power, and when he puts Warden inside of the Baroness Hotel, he's just like, nah, I got no clue. What you thinking, man? I ain't got a clue what you're thinking. Like, the specific in-game line is just, what do you want, Warden? Like, he doesn't understand or know what he wants. And funny enough, he also seems to hide his motivations from his allies, going off of a conversation with Holiday that annoyingly isn't voiced. He does have some interactions in-game. Specifically, he has interactions with Dynamo, Grey Talon, Hayes, Holiday, and Lady Geist, but none of them are voiced on his part, which I think is quite interesting. But yeah, the specific line from Holiday is that, like, it's kind of like a back and forth thing, and she says, what are you fighting for? And then Warden replies, and she just has to say, that's alarmingly vague. So it looks like he is on his mission to destroy the patrons once and for all, and is hiding it from anyone and everyone that he comes into contact with. How he actually intends to stop the patrons, we have absolutely no idea. And I mean, what actually could you do to destroy the patrons? Well, I guess it can't really be that difficult, right? I mean, you kill a patron in every single game of Deadlock you play, right? Just by shooting it. So, who knows? Who knows? Either way, whatever his intentions are, he does intend or is willing to die if it means completing his mission. This man is very, very dedicated to the sole goal of beating the patrons, which intrigues me. But besides, you know, protecting humanity at all costs, funny enough, he doesn't discriminate against supernatural creatures, which, oh, let's go Warden. Like, wow, he's not dedicated to the cause so much that he actually treats anything supernatural as, like, disgusting and otherworldly. Like, he treats characters like Abrams and Ivy with respect. But it's a curious thing of whether that's because, you know, they are, like, that's curious if whether or not it's because they, like, would he discriminate against them if they were different, if that made sense? Like, Abrams and Ivy are quite noble characters. They're quite, you know, like, they fight for their causes and fight for honor and, well, not honor, but you get the idea, right? Would it be different if they weren't, you know, dedicated to a similar cause as his, which is protecting people? I don't know. But funny enough, he does actually show quite clear contempt for human beings, such as Lash and Paradox. He doesn't seem to like either of them, based off of some kill quotes he has. He also has no hobbies outside of his training. He's said to be a vigilante, even though characters such as Ivy and Viper and Wraith, who are like street level, don't actually recognize him or acknowledge him. And he also says that New York is under his protection. And it's also implied that the Warden's militant alchemist bloodline comes from his father's side. Mostly because the doorman has a voice line where he kills him, where he says, "A failure, just like your father." Implies that doorman actually knew Warden's dad, which is, quite interesting. And as I said, there aren't any really character interactions I can play audibly for you, which is a bit disappointing, so I am going to have to just describe them. But before I do actually want to play like some of his pick quotes, because I have the audio files for those. For those curious, we do actually know his voice actor, and that is Rick D. Wasserman? I don't know how to say his last name, but either way, I checked his IMDb page. He's not really known for too much. He played Thor in a few Marvel TV shows. He played a few background characters in Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and he was in Batman The Killing Joke. However, after I, skimmed through his stuff, I found out he's actually the voice of the Scorch Titan from Titanfall 2, which, that's kind of neat, right? I think that's kind of cool. But anyways, I'll just play a few of his select voices, just so you get like a feel for what he sounds like.
My family failed to protect this city once before. It cannot happen again. The patrons will herald the end of humanity if we let them. Too often people think of the benefits without ever considering the cost.
Very serious guy almost at all times, right? But I like his voice. I think he sounds kind of cool. He's got that kind of gruff, gravelly sound to it, which I think fits Warden, going off of his backstory. I'm not going to say it fits his design, because his design is clearly unfinished to hell and back. But anyways, some other character interactions I feel like I probably should mention is that he, as I said, is quite sympathetic towards characters who are, like, noble. Like, he respects people like Abrams, Ivy, Mirage. He's sympathetic towards Holiday, Pocket, and Vindicta, characters who have been wronged. He says he looked up to Grey Talon, which is quite an interesting idea. And he shows a lot of righteous anger towards Seven. What a surprise that he wouldn't like Seven, right? But he also doesn't like Wrecker. For those that don't know who Wrecker is, he was an unreleased hero. I don't know why he's not in the game, actually. I'd argue that Wrecker probably is more finished than some of the characters we have in-game right now. Wrecker is probably more finished than Sinclair, or Warden for that matter. He had lore, he had a voice, he had gameplay, he had all the things you really needed. I don't know why Wrecker isn't actually just kind of in the game. I think he would be fine, even as his unfinished design as his is. Even how unfinished his design is right now. There we go. Okay, I'm going to get this one out of the way. I'm not going to talk about it. I'll probably mention it again when we get to his design. But a few characters comment on the fact that Warden has a cape. I'm going to throw his design up on screen right now. Does that look like a cape? Does it look like there's a cape on him? No, there isn't. He's not wearing a cape. However, thanks to the I think it was like the screenshots where they showed off Yamato's redesign ideas, like the concept art for that, you can actually see very, very much concept art for what Warden's redesign would be. And he's wearing this big kind of chunky cape, and how I see it, just going off of literal sketches, is that he might actually be wearing the cape of like a supernatural creature he may have killed. Many characters say that they are freaked out by the cape, and if it was just like a cape, why would you be freaked out by that? But if it was a cape made out of the dead body of a supernatural being, yeah, I can understand why someone would be freaked out by that. It kind of would give him like a more like primal feeling to him, I suppose. Like a lot of primal. Like you go back in you go back 10,000 years ago, people obviously would wear like animal pelts as like capes and stuff. I feel like that'd be kind of cool for Warden to be wearing like the cape. I don't know. What's a cool like supernatural creature? Deadlock makes them up on the spot. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like some made up supernatural creature, but you never know. He could show up wearing a cape made out of the Loch Ness monster or something. I don't know. There's twice now I've mentioned that creature. But yeah, a few characters do reference him as like kind of creepy. Like Holiday says that he looks like he's wearing a Halloween costume, and that she calls him a creepy homeschooled kid. And Lash calls him creepy and vomitous, which I think is the first time where Lash has had me beat on English language. And he also calls Warden a scary son of a bitch. So yeah, apparently Warden is kind of the creepy fella. I think he's very dedicated to his cause. He's very serious all the time. And, I mean, a few characters call him creepy. Lady Geist also calls him perpetually miserable. And Billy, Calico, Pocket, and Mirage all call him out for his blind devotion to his parents' mission. Which, I mean, I don't know, he just seems to be very serious, very miserable, very scary, or kind of creepy. I mean, Viscous and Viper think he needs to smile more. Like, I don't know. Grey Talon even says that they both live hollow lives. Which, yeah, very interesting kind of characterization for him. All of that, by the way, is not in the game. All of that is like stuff from, you know, like data mined files and leaked interactions that aren't voiced yet and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see not only when he gets a redesign, but also when he gets, you know, proper interactions with these other characters. And yeah, by the way, I was lying when I said, oh, this will be a short one. There isn't much to talk about. No, I just damn talked about everything he has in his pockets. So yeah, this is 15 minutes long. We're 15 minutes in. Either way, Warden's Law is probably one of the most finished things about him, but just none of this stuff that I just talked about is actually kind of in-game. Like, the only things that are actually in-game are some of his kill lines and, like, the doorman stuff, where he says, oh, I can't see what into your mind. Like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. He's a very weird character. He both exists and doesn't exist. He's very much, per the video title, is an enigma. We know very little about him, but we also know a lot about him simultaneously. Like, it's all kind of confusing. I don't know, he's a very confusing character. We know a lot and don't simultaneously, which it makes it kind of hard to talk about him. But anyways, this section is actually probably longer than some of the characters with even more lore than him, so, or less lore than him, or yeah, more lore than him. Yeah. I'm getting my words confused. Anyways, we're now going to move on to talking about his gameplay and his abilities. Please do keep in mind when I switch over, I use OBS to record my audio and gameplay simultaneously, so if I sound slightly different, that's why. But with that said, we're now going to talk about Warden's gameplay and his abilities. Right, so here we are in the ever so lovely and ever so helpful training range to talk about Warden's gameplay. But before we do, I've just noticed something. This is very small, right? A lot of characters now have like resting poses. I don't know when this got added, but like, before like characters would, always hold their guns up, but now, they're resting. I don't know why, I just noticed it. Like, look, normal Warden pose, and then he just drops his gun. Weird. Anyways, first things first, Warden's gun. It's known as Freedom's Cost. You will notice, if you look very closely, his fire rate is actually affected by his spirit, which is a thing I will kind of explain in a moment. Or I will say Warden is very much a hybrid character. He kind of likes not to go down specifically one lane of, gun or spirit. He kind of likes to do a mix of both, because both benefit, they kind of like intermingle and work with one another simultaneously. But speaking of his actual gun, this thing is very good. Very, like, really good. It's a slow firing assault rifle of sorts. It's got a relatively long reload time, I must admit, but this thing does, pretty good damage. I mean, full magazine into one person, 250, it's not bad. As I've mentioned many times before, it is a pseudo hit scan weapon. It does very good headshot damage. It's very strong in lane because it's easy to, like, take out minions, secure their souls. It does good damage up close and personal. Good damage from range, actually, if I demonstrate. Decent damage from range, as I said, and I just realized that I didn't turn on all of my usuals. But this gun is very good, like very, very strong. And thankfully, it does actually kind of work very well with all of his builds. I mean, its slow fire rate is something that kind of sucks a little, but as I just mentioned, his fire rate scales with spirit. So you can just build spirit items on him and get, like, quick fire rate, which does, that's helpful. And you will be basically shooting all the damn time. This gun there's no reason not to just be firing every bullet you can at everything and anything you see. Because here's a fun fact, his abilities are, they got very short cooldowns, specifically his wand. This is known as the Alchemical Flask. It has a 6.5 meter radius, and this thing is your bread and butter. And I mean it. This thing is your bread and butter. You're going to be using this so damn often that you're going to get bored of hearing the sound effects of it flying through the air. You throw a flask that damages enemies and reduces the weapon damage and move speed of enemies it hits. It does 60 damage, which scales with spirit. It gives a minus 20% move speed penalty and a minus 30% weapon damage penalty. The slow lasts for 3 seconds, and the weapon debuff lasts for 7 seconds. This is one of the more unique abilities in the game, in the fact that it reduces the weapon output, like the outcoming weapon damage of an enemy. I think that's really odd. I swear there are characters that also have that. I could not tell you who. I want to say it, who lowers the damage of like the outgoing weapon damage. Is it? No. Who the hell does it? I can't remember for the life of me. Yeah, no, I've got nothing actually. Dynamo maybe? No. I don't know who. Warden might be unique. I'm sure someone's going to tell me otherwise, because I mean, someone's always going to correct me on stuff that I forget, and I do thank them kindly for it. But yeah, I think, big asterisks on that this is the only ability in the game that reduces outgoing weapon damage, which is quite unique. And it is both a offensive tool and defensive tool as a result of that. To show what it actually does though, you press 1 and you throw out a little purple glass and it explodes. You throw out your little purple flask, bang. It's got weird trajectory as well. Like you throw it, it's got like that cut, it has like a curve to it. So if I were to throw it straight upwards, it would apparently curve backwards. Yeah, apparently so. I guess you could like trick shot people when you're running away. Like, oh no, someone's after me. You just like throw it behind you to get a trick shot off. This ability is very, very, very good. However, at level 1, it has a 12-second cooldown, right? And that's a fine enough cooldown. It does decent damage, and you know, the move speed penalty and the weapon damage decrease is very good. And you kind of can just like, in the laning phase, you literally just want to lob it. Like, lob it whenever you think you can hit it. There is literally no reason not to throw this thing whenever you can. Here's a fun fact as well. You can throw it whilst you shoot, allowing you to just kind of like combo the both of them. This is what I meant by like, just shoot as much as you can. Because, I mean, throwing the flask doesn't actually interrupt your shots. So there's no reason not to shoot and throw at the same time. But where this item or where this ability gets its huge benefits is on its upgrades. Where at level 1, the enemy loses 1 stamina when hit by it, which can really handicap some characters. If you're in a lane against a Mina and she gets hit by your flask, she might as well be dead if she doesn't have her 2-up. Like, Mina only has 2 stamina, right? So if you're removing an entire bar of that thing, she got 1 stamina. She can dash or double jump. That's it. That's all she's got open to her. But if she, of course, has, you know, her 2 ready, she can obviously get away with that as well. So, you know, if for those that may end up playing as Warden and end up laning against Amina, you do want to beware of when she's using or used her 2, because you can catch her out with the flask's stamina removal. But anyways, on its second upgrade, you get an extra 40 damage, bringing it to 100. And this is the key one. At level 3, you reduce the cooldown by 6.5 seconds, and the weapon debuff also applies a minus 35% fire rate debuff. Which means the cooldown for Flask is 5.5 seconds without any items. 5.5. This shit comes out so often. You will literally, you fight Warden, right? In the first 10 seconds of your fight with him, he's probably thrown two flasks. This build here is my personal, or one of my more favored builds. This hybrid build as well is also really fun to use, because as I said, Warden does play very well as a hybrid. Like, even this build is also very fun to use. But if you get, you know, if you imbue your cooldown onto the 1, right? 4 seconds. 4. Mr. Fantastic, think of it. 4 seconds. You're throwing a flask that does good damage, lowers move speed, lowers the weapon damage that they deal, lowers their fire rate every 4 seconds. Note, this slow lasts for 3 seconds. There is going to be a single second where they are not slowed. The weapon debuff, which is the weapon damage output and fire rate debuff, lasts for 7 seconds. You can reapply, you could just permanently have them doing less fire rate and less weapon damage, because you just throw these flasks out every 3 seconds. Or 4 seconds, my bad. Like, you just lob them. Lob them everywhere. Literally, you're shooting them, lobbing them. Like, they can't do anything. This thing does really good damage once you have, like, some good, like, items in it. Like, this ability is, like, his bread and butter. This thing does stupid damage later on. And you can just kind of lob it. You've got no reason not to throw this flask as much as humanly possible. And it is so much fun to just watch enemies have their health get steadily chipped away at by just you throwing this purple bottle over and over and over. Like, they will get bored. Some characters get hard countered by Warden's existence because of the flask. Someone like Hayes gets her shit rocked by Warden. He throws just a single flask. Her fire rate's lowered, which she loves high fire rate. Her weapon damage is lowered, which that's all she can do. Like, she gets screwed over. Drifter gets screwed over. Less fire rate, less weapon damage. Not great for him. By decreasing weapon damage, you are actually decreasing melee damage as well, to my knowledge. I think that's how it should work. So someone like Billy or Abrams can get screwed over. Like, someone like Infernus, someone who does rely on, like, spirit damage from his 3 to do a lot of his damage, can get screwed over. Because he obviously has to hit weapon shots to build up the burn. But if you've got minus 30% fire rate, what the hell are you going to do? Kinetic Carbine will be doing 30% less damage with one flask. One ability that is ready every 5 seconds without any upgrades. I'm sorry, if you were to buy... I wouldn't personally recommend it, right? But if you bought Transcendent Cooldown, 3.85 seconds. 3.85! Do you understand how strong that is? By the way, on every flask, you're removing stamina from them. Every flask, every in this case, every 3.85 seconds, you're taking away their stamina, you're lowering their move speed, you're lowering their weapon damage and fire rate. Like, what? Why does it do all of this on such a short cooldown? Most other characters would have to wait 12, 18, 15 seconds for something like this. Warden's out here waiting for free. Like, what? This ability is so dumb. It's so stupid. It's so easy to hit as well, because you literally just lob it. And remember, this is an item that gets affected by spirit stuff. So if you were to buy Mystic Expansion, you could increase the radius of your flask, which then makes it even easier to hit. Mind you, as well, that the flask doesn't just hit one person. It's an AoE, so you can throw this into a team and remove one of their staminas, slow them all, reduce all of their weapon damage, give them all lowered fire rate. Like, what? Why can he do all of this so easily? This is a stupid ability. This is so dumb. This is such a stupid ability. And I'm gonna move on from it before... I feel like you understand the idea. This is a very dumb ability. It's very strong. Very, very strong. It makes Warden obscenely oppressive. Like, in lane, out of lane, in any part of the game, this flask will be most people's worst nightmare. And you'll just hear it flying through the air, going gluk, 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 and then it hits you. But anyways, second ability is known as Willpower. It has a 7-second duration and a 42-second cooldown. You gain a barrier and bonus move speed. That's it. You get an 125 barrier, which I think scales with Spirit. Oh no, it doesn't scale with Spirit until its last upgrade. And you get 15% move speed bonus. Isn't that awesome? I'm not kidding. This is all it does. You literally just press 2. Barrier. And you run faster. By the way, 42-second cooldown. 5-second cooldown. Even with its upgrades, it doesn't really change much. Like, on its first upgrade, you get an extra 20% movement speed. On the second upgrade, you reduce the cooldown by 19 seconds. And on the third upgrade, you increase the barrier's health by 150, and it scales to Spirit Power, bringing the barrier to 275, but now it scales to Spirit. I understand the strength of this ability, right? It is like, you get to put a barrier on yourself so you can take more damage, you're a bit tankier, and the extra move speed, allows you to keep up with the enemies that you're fighting. But this thing is on a 23-second cooldown at base, or at max level. This thing is on a 5-second cooldown. Like, the Flask is on 5 seconds. You see all the stuff that Flask does, and see how easy it is to, like, hit? Why has Barrier got to be on the quadruple the cooldown for doing, like, an eighth of what Flask can do? Like, I understand the strength of willpower, right? It's a barrier and it's bonus move speed. But it's just why the dichotomy between the two of these is absurd. Alchemical Flask does everything in the book at every 5 seconds, and willpower gives you a barrier and bonus move speed, and it's got to sit on a 23-second cooldown. How is that fair? How does that even make any sense? Like, you would think, going off of what they do, they would be swapped. This would be on the 5-second cooldown, and this would be on the 23-second cooldown. But, I mean, there's a fine enough ability. It's very boring. Like, it's really, really boring. Like, I'm sorry, we already have a more interesting barrier in Pages. Like, the barrier that gives, you know, extra bonus weapon damage and extra fire rate, and it bounces between targets. Look at Pages, right? Pages on a 30-second cooldown. 7 seconds longer, and she gets bonus weapon damage for the enemy, or for the allies. It goes on to 3 people. It gives them bonus fire rate, and all of those effects, so the barrier, the weapon damage, scale with spirit immediately. They don't need to be upgraded to tier 3. The only difference is Warden gets bonus move speed instead of, like, weapon damage. Yeah, hers is only 7 seconds longer cooldown. Like, I don't know, willpower is just kind of a boring ability that just exists. Like, you press 2, you run faster, and now you can catch up to people and tank more hits. I mean, sure, whatever. Like, whatever. It just exists. I don't have anything to say about it. Like, if you want tips on how to use it, just use it how you would use a barrier. I don't know. Like, put it up when you're chasing someone for the bonus move speed, or if you're trying to run away, so you get the extra, like, health and stuff. I don't know. It's a very boring ability. I mean, it does its job, I guess, but I just don't have much to say about it. Anyways, third ability is known as Binding Word. It is a 20-meter range, a 37-second cooldown, and you curse an enemy. If they do not move away from their initial position within the escape time, they will be damaged and immobilized. It does 110 damage at base. The immobilization lasts for 1.75 seconds. The escape time is 2.8 seconds. Oh, so how long you have to escape. And the escape range is 19 meters. To show what this ability does, you press 3, and you hold up this little, like, claw thingy-majig in your hand. If you look at an enemy and then press, you know, left mouse button, a loud warning, like, alarm will echo out. And as you just saw there, it will have, like, this little, like, claw above them that slowly gets ready to clamp down on them. And as you can see, there's, like, this circle. If the enemy manages to move out of that circle, the claw will not clamp down on them and will not immobilize them. But if they, you know, so say for example, let's test it on the, you know, the funny moving dummy. So say he's running around, right, running back and forth. He'll then get stopped completely and he can't move. This is a very good ability, but kind of an annoying one to use. The majority of characters in this game are quite mobile, so I don't really know. You kind of have to, like, catch enemies out with it. So when they don't have stamina, or when they've used up their cooldowns for abilities that make them get away from things quicker. Let's say you manage to catch an Infernus just after he uses Flame Dash. You know, that would be an opportunity where you try to put the Binding Ward on them. Or for example, you hit them with a flask and then put the Binding Ward on them, because they'll have the negative move speed penalty. They'll have the stamina they'll have their stamina reduced. So the idea, in my experience, is to throw a flask and then try and put the thingy on them, because they'll be moving slower, they'll have less stamina to work with, so usually they will get caught by it. When they are immobilized, they can still, you know, like, fight back. They can still use, like, you know, not all abilities. Like, you can't use movement abilities, for example. Like, you can't just put the thing on Ivy, she gets clamped, and then she just suddenly flies away with the clamp still on her, right? She does have to wait for the clamp to disappear before she can fly away. But they can just, like, you know, still shoot back. If you get close enough, they can actually melee back. And yeah, whilst they're stuck there, it's usually a free kill. I'm going to be completely real with you. Like, they're stuck in a single position, just asking to be shot. I've had games where I've just locked down a target and I watch a haze run past me and just, I don't even think I see them die. I just look at the haze running, turn back, and the body's on the floor. Like, it's because they're just stuck. They have to take, it's free headshot damage, basically. And as I said, they are stuck. They can get hit by anything and everything, even like hard to hit skill shots and stuff. I've had Holidays obliterate some targets that get stuck in the ward. It's actually, it's really damn scary, actually. It's really scary. It's a pretty good ability, but as I said, you kind of have to be a little bit smart about using it, because the area, like this circle that it creates, that is created wherever you initially place it. So say, for example, they're already like running around sprinting, you would place the thing on them and they would be like, so say they're moving. Like, well, actually, no, that's a good example, right? Well, it's kind of a hard example to show. So say I put it on the guy when he's there, look, it starts there and he exits it. But if I put it here, it will go out to this circle and then he still gets caught. You see the idea? You kind of have to be like aware of where they are when you're putting it on them. Like, you wouldn't put it on them when they're like, I don't know, climbing near an edge of the building or going towards one. Where's their little thing? One of these little dudes. You wouldn't, like, say there's a enemy running. They're like over here. They're running, and then you put it on them. The circle appears here, but then they step on this thing and they just fly out of the circle's range, right? You kind of have to be aware of where they are, how much stamina they have, what they've used, and then, you know, go ahead and place the binding ward on them. But usually late game, if you manage to put this on them, it's usually a free kill. Usually, it depends on who you manage to lock down. I've locked down an Abrams before, and he just didn't really care. He just tanked it. But anyways, on the first upgrade, you increase the immobilization duration by, try say that 5 times fast. Immobilization duration by 1 second, so it brings it to 2.75 seconds, which is a very long time. Like 3 seconds, basically 3 seconds in Deadlock is not a small amount of time to be stuck in place. Because remember, you do want to be moving as much as you can. So yeah, you can see why it's usually a free kill. On the second upgrade, you reduce the cooldown by 19 seconds, which brings it to 18 seconds. And on the third upgrade, Warden deals 20% more bullet damage to trapped heroes for 6 seconds. Which, of course, only makes it easier to just, you know, obliterate them. And as I said, Warden is a hybrid character. He wants to build for, you know, spirit and gun kind of simultaneously, because his gun scales fire rate-wise off of spirit. So you don't need to buy fire rate abilities. All you need to do, say, for example, in this build, is buy magazine stuff, or stuff that just flat out increases your damage. You never need to buy any fire rate stuff, because he just does it anyways, with, you know, any spirit items. But the extra bullet damage, 20% more bullet damage when, say, for example, in this build, you built for like glass cannon and silencer and heroic aura, like, yeah, you will do some really high gun damage. But yeah, binding word, I already said enough about it. You understand how it works, you understand the idea with it. Try to lock someone down when they're caught out without any cooldowns up, or when they're on low stamina or something, or you can forcibly make them be on low stamina with the flask, which only heightens the pure strength of the flask. But now let's talk about his ult. I'm sure many of you have gone against this and probably hate it, but this thing is stupid. It's known as Last Stand. It has a 13-meter range, or radius, and a 6-second duration. It has a 155-second cooldown, and after charging for 2 seconds, you release pulses that damage enemies and heal you based on the damage done. While channeling Last Stand, you have greatly increased bullet and spirit resist. It does 70 damage per second. It has a 65% hero lifesteal. There is a 0.5 second interval between the pulses. It has a 10% non-hero lifesteal, so minions, turret, or bases and stuff like that. A 30%, and I believe during the channel, you get 30% bullet and spirit resist, which they kind of bullshitting with that description. Greatly increased bullet and spirit resist. 30%. With wording like that, I would expect like 50, 60, but hey ho, whatever can you do. Anyways, when you press 4, you will charge up your hand in the world. Hand in the world. I meant to say hand in the air. He just said something about changing the world and it threw me off. But yeah, you'll charge up for a bit, create a cone in front of you that will, if anyone, you know, enters it, you'll damage them with like little pulses. Now, as you can see there, you're able to do stuff. You're able to shoot. You're able to throw the flask. You're able to use the barrier. You're able to use the ward. You can just fight as normal, but now you're shooting pulses out in front of you that heal you, deal good damage, and, well, you know, that's stupid. That is a stupid ability. This is a stupid ability. You will literally stand in front of someone as they are shooting you and just charge up to do unbelievably high damage. Like, I know this doesn't look like too much, all things considered, but remember, as I said, Warden benefits a lot from spirit items. This ability really, one of the best items in the game for Warden is, what build is it? Is it this build? Yeah, it is. Lightning Scroll. Damage from your ultimate applies a stun and deals bonus spirit damage after a short delay. Do you see how easy it is to apply the actual hits from this thing? You literally just need to look at them. By the way, this thing doesn't have a target limit. So if there are 5 enemy heroes in front of you, this thing will hit all of them. And if you have Lightning Scroll, it will stun all of them. And as I said, you can do anything you want whilst you're doing it. And as I said again, his flask does really good damage. His gun will do really good damage. He is actually, like, in most cases, like, let's not ignore the hero's lifesteal, by the way. Like, Warden, in most cases, using this ability because of the hero lifesteal and the, you know, general tankiness he kind of shares a lot of the time. Warden's a weird character. He can both simultaneously be tanky and squishy. If the barrier is not ready and he doesn't have his ult, he can get cooked really easily because he does want to build mostly for, like, you know, offensive options. Because, well, why would you need to build defensively if you have an ult that literally just keeps you alive for free? But in most cases, if he is using Last Stand against, like, 2-3 enemies, Warden is unkillable. He is a literal wall of death that will not die. He is absurd, actually. He really does do a lot of damage. And if I remember right, okay, it says while channeling Last Stand, you have greatly increased spirit and bullet resist. I actually have just realized, I think the resistances do apply whilst you're doing the ult. I think because like, I thought it meant this part, like where you're channeling it, getting ready to use it. I do actually think it's the entire duration of it that it gets the bullet resist. If I didn't mean to put a point in that, actually. Whoops. 1 second. Just reset all of that. I just wanted to see, like, if I charge up this, so I get the bullet armor and spirit resist. No, it is just whilst you're charging it. Okay. Right. Just gotta make sure. I have to be correct in these videos. I can't be wrong. Unless I am wrong and I just don't realize it and someone tells me in the comments and I thank them kindly. But yeah, this ability is really dumb. I mean, you just charge it. You can literally just stand in front of someone and use it and they can't really do anything and now they just have to run away. Like, that's the only option you have when Warden is in his ult, and that's to run away as much as you can. But remember, what does Warden do again with his flask? Oh yeah, remove stamina, slow them down, blah blah blah. What does he do on his 2? Oh, he gets extra move speed. Like, you can't run away from Warden. It's just really hard to run away from Warden. I mean, that other build that I showed near the beginning, this build, this is shockingly quite strong. Healing tempo merged with radiant regeneration makes Warden this unkillable, unbelievably fast character, and it's very funny to watch people be like, oh no, Warden ult, quick, run away, and because I've just healed myself with a lifesteal on my ult, I'm now like 20% fast. How much extra move speed do you get? 1.5 meters per second. You'd be surprised how much that is. Like, it's just a he's a stupid character. And that's not, by the way, base Last Stand, because on its upgrade, you increase the radius by 3 meters, you increase the DPS by 45 and reduce the cooldown by 30 seconds on its second upgrade, bring the DPS to 115 and the cooldown to 125. And on the third upgrade, you get an extra 50% to both resistances during the channel, and you increase the duration by 2.5 seconds, bringing the resistances to 80%, meaning you literally can just charge this thing right in front of someone. They can't kill you. 80% to resistances. You're unkillable during that. Like, when you're actually charging it, you are unkillable. And the duration is now increased to 8.5 seconds. So yeah, Warden's unkillable. Warden's really, like, gameplay-wise, I'd argue Warden's like one of the strongest characters in the game, because not only does he do really high gun damage, he does really high spirit damage, he has really good utility because of the stupid ass flask that recharges every like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, that's, you know, slowing people down, reducing their damage. Like, that's the thing as well. You throw the flask before you actually start charging your ult, they're doing minus 30% weapon damage. Like, you're gonna get through the bullet resist on the actual ult at max, like, upgrade. Like, it's stupid. Reduce stamina as well. Dumb. So dumb. This alchemical flask makes him as strong as he is. I'm gonna be honest. It's not a crutch, really. I wouldn't say it's a crutch, but damn. With all it does, it feels like a crutch sometimes. Willpower is obviously boring, but strong. It's a barrier, and it does, you know, move speed bonus. That's woo. And the claw can be, you know, efficient, but you kind of have to use your brain to use it. You can't just use it all willy-nilly. I mean, I've had instances where, as I said, you know, you can use lightning scroll, and you, like, so you would charge up your ult, and then start it in front of someone, but then before you start, you put the ward on them. So it kind of like how I've done it before is I've used the ult. One of the things hit them, they get stunned because of lightning scroll, and just before they get stunned, I put this on them, and then throw a flask, because then they've got load stamina, load move speed. They've just been stunned by the ult for, how long is it? Like 1.5 seconds, or 0.75 seconds. And then they can just get clawed. They get killed. It's easy. Trust. Warden's quite easy to play as. He's very strong, and outside of the binding word, he's easy to play as. Strong, unbelievably so. Arguably one of like the top 5 characters in the entire game, I would argue, in like a competitive sense. At least in my experience, he just feels unbelievably oppressive. Like, it's really hard to fight Warden because he's good at every point in the game. He can kind of get cooked sometimes, depends on the build you're using, of course, but I like this one a lot. I really do. I like all the options and all the situational stuff, but yeah, Warden's dumb. He's a very strong character. I have not much more to say on him. Besides, our chemical flask is stupid. Why is this on a 5-second cooldown? Anyways, with all of that said, let us move on to his design, and this is easily, again, with Viper's exact same scenario, the weakest part. This is the weakest part of Warden, and it upsets me because I think he could be really damn cool. He's meant... Okay. He looks like a cop, right? He looks like a weirdly British... He looks weirdly British. He's like a weird British cop. I'm sure as many of you have seen stereotypes and such. Most British cops back in the day used to have like these weird... What are these called? I don't know what type of hats these called. I'll throw a picture of what like a stereotypical British cop may have used to look like. So he's got a weird British cop look. He looks like a cop anyways, ignoring like, you know, being adorned in patches and militaristic kind of look. This character design is just confusing. It's not even meant to be his character design. He's not meant to look like this. This is not what Warden is meant to look like. This is just a weird ass model that is kind of slapped on him. He looks like a weird mix between a British cop and the soldier from TF2. Like, he's got militaristic designs on him, like with the patches on his arms and kind of being adorned in golden buttons and this weird like golden chain that wraps around his shoulder. I don't actually know what this is meant to be, really. I think it's like a rope of some kind. He's got like a bunch of bags on his front where he keeps stuff. On his back, he does have this weird like little blue hand in a cage for some reason. And he has cuffs as well, which I think there's a cuffs and a police baton. Like, he looks like a police officer, but he's not. He's not a police officer. And as I showed earlier with that concept art, he's meant to be like some sort of monster hunter looking fella. He's meant to be, you know, wearing a cape of what I presume is probably like a monster's dead body or something. Like, I mean, he's so unfit. His brother uses the same face as Lash. Look, that's Lash's old face. The one with the weird hollowed out eyes and the mustache. Him and Lash have the exact same face. The only way they look different is because of the helmet on the head. I don't know. What do you want me to say about Warden? He doesn't exist. Like, design-wise, Warden does straight up not exist. This is not Warden. This is an imposter wearing his skin. Like, a bit befitting, actually, for someone who covers Supernatural, I suppose. But, yeah. I don't like the design we have currently. It doesn't fit him, really. I get the idea, right? I get the idea for fitting... I can understand the argument for it fitting him as he is now. I don't personally agree with it. I don't think him looking like a cop works. He's a monster hunter. He fights the supernatural. Why would he be dressed like a cop? He's told to us as being like a vigilante. I'm imagining this dude as like a grotesque, creepy, homeschooled version of Batman. Like... Yeah, I don't think Batman would dress like this. I'm gonna be real. Maybe that's why he's got a cape. Maybe he is actually gonna be like Deadlock's Batman. And if he is Deadlock's Batman, I think that would be hilarious. But yeah, the design as it is now is fine. I think the most cool part of it is probably the little hand on his thing. But besides that, this design just kind of exists. It's not even gonna be his design. It just doesn't exist. This is not a design. This is not Warden's design. But yeah, with all of that said, this is the end of the video. If you have enjoyed it to this point, like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, whether it be a good morning, afternoon, evening. I think Warden is a interesting character. I like his lore quite a lot, mostly due to the doors it opens, and his gameplay, although relatively simple and quote-unquote boring, I do find quite fun, mostly due to this build kind of just being very fun to use. But yeah, with all of that said, oh yeah, and his design sucks. His design doesn't exist. But again, with all of that said, our next object of obsession is going to be none other than the Queen of Gambling herself, Wraith.